is News at 6 on WUTR.
Tonight's top stories at 6. Another change in leadership for the Utica Fire Department amid a sexual scandal.
Operations are once again suspended at Hardin Furniture.
We'll take you into the corruption trial of former SUNY Poly president Dr. Elaine Calieros taking place in Manhattan. Good evening, I'm Grace Fernandez. Thanks for joining us. Angie Pavlovsky is off tonight. The ongoing turmoil at the top of the Utica Fire Department is reaching a boiling point. Late this afternoon, Utica Mayor Robert Palmieri announced interim City Fire Chief John Kelly resigned the position last Friday. Kelly, who replaced Fire Chief Russell Brooks, has been the focus of an investigation after it came to light that he had exchanged sexual text messages with a firefighter candidate. Kelly had invited the candidate to watch pornographic videos at the Utica Firehouse. While the investigation found that no crime had been committed, a previous statement by the city said discipline had been administered. It was not noted in that release who had been investigated and what the discipline was. In today's announcement, the mayor requested the civil service exam for fire chief be made open competitive. Palmieri also said he will explore appointing a new interim fire chief. Kelly's resignation is effective July 1st, and we will continue to cover this story in the days ahead. More hard times for Hardin Furniture as their future is once again unknown. Eyewitness News reporter Jamie DeLine is in the newsroom with an update. Jamie, what can you tell us?
Good evening, Grace. Operations are once again completely suspended at Hardin Furniture. This comes after the holding company used to acquire Hardin Furniture recently started filing for bankruptcy. For the past 2 weeks, production has been at a standstill. Managers and office staff were told not to report into work today. Earlier this month, the holding company Maverick One Leasing, which was used to purchase the furniture company in April, began filling out the paperwork necessary to file for bankruptcy. Back in January, Hardin Furniture's assets were sold at auction to Big Shoulders Capital out of Illinois, and over 170 employees were laid off. Weeks later, however, production did start up again. But as for this time, it's still unknown as to if or when operations will resume. Eyewitness News did reach out to Walter Haskett, the sole owner of Hardin Furniture, and he has not given us a response. Reporting in the newsroom, Jamie DeLine, Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Jamie. The corruption trial of former SUNY Poly president Dr. Elaine Calieros started today in Manhattan. Our Capitol correspondent Morgan Mackay was there and brings us the latest.
Todd Howe was a star witness in the Joseph Prococo trial and an ex-lobbyist with ties to Governor Andrew Cuomo. The prosecution says this corrupted what was supposed to be an open and fair process. However, Calieros' lawyer says this is completely normal. When Governor Cuomo came up with a plan to expand technological companies in upstate New York, he gave Calieros the responsibility of finding companies that would be the right fit. They admit that Calieros reached out to talk with these companies, possibly giving them a head start. But this was all perfectly legal, they claim. If there was any conspiracy, all 4 lawyers put the blame on Howe's feet, who they call a master criminal and manipulator. Howe, despite receiving a plea deal for his testimony in the Prococo trial, is now in jail for committing more fraud and will not be called to testify in this trial. The prosecution also pointed out that Calieros used his private email server to communicate with these companies. Another admission of guilt, they say. Calieros' lawyer said, however, that he only did that to avoid getting his emails shared with journalists through the Freedom of Information law. In Albany, Morgan Mackay, Eyewitness News.
New York State Police are continuing to investigate a fatal tractor-trailer crash that happened earlier today on the Thruway. Bruce DeBracchio of Sarasota, Florida, was traveling eastbound near Schuyler when the tractor-trailer he was driving went off the roadway before crashing into the Route 5 overpass. He was pronounced dead at the scene. His passenger was taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The left lane is currently open, but the right lane continues to be closed. The numbers are rising across the country. Gas prices soaring, and now local politicians are calling for a change. Eyewitness News reporter Marley Tuscas joins us here in the studio to explain. Grace, for the past month, residents in the Mohawk Valley have seen prices at the gas pump continue to rise. Now, one local lawmaker is calling on someone to fix that, his opponent.
It's an unfortunate but necessary evil here in America that we are glued to the gas pump. The prices go up a bit and we feel like we've hit the wall. They go down and we feel like we hit the lottery. No matter how you speak it, gas prices are the bane of the American consumer.
Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi holding a press conference today to push for legislation currently sitting in the Senate called the American Oil for American Families Act.
This bill would prohibit the export of American-produced oil by big oil companies and instead increase the domestic supply of gasoline in the American marketplace.
And announced he's calling on his opponent in the 22nd congressional race, Claudia Tenney, to co-sponsor this bill.
Right now, when it comes to this bill and so many other ways we can lower gas prices, Congresswoman Tenney is running on fumes.
Brindisi saying Tenney's lack of support for this bill could be due to the fact she's received thousands from what he called big oil companies. In a statement, Tenney's campaign calling his complaints disingenuous and blamed policies in Albany for New York's high gas prices.
We reached out to Tenney to see if she plans on co-sponsoring this legislation. A member from her campaign telling us she won't speak specifically on this one because she has a record in Congress of supporting domestic supply increases, which should speak for itself. Reporting, Marley Tuskus, Eyewitness News. Thank you, Marley. The Senate passed a bill last week calling for a commission to keep an eye out on prosecutors. Eyewitness News reporter Julie LeBlanc spoke with a representative of the District Attorneys Association of New York for their side of the story.
The bill, sponsored by Senator John DeFrancisco, calls for a commission to oversee the conduct of prosecutors.
And basically what he's alleging is that anytime that there's something favorable to the defense, we are intentionally hiding it.
Scott McNamara says a problem arises when it comes to defining prosecutorial misconduct. Depending on who you ask, it could be anywhere from mumbling profanities to throwing away evidence. But a more acceptable definition:
when a prosecutor intentionally breaks an ethical rule, okay? And then that's the issue. Like, there's intentionally doing something wrong, and then people make mistakes.
Not only this, but McNamara says a system is already in place, involving people appointed by the appellate divisions of the Supreme Court. Right now, when a complaint, also known as a grievance, is filed, this committee will send a private letter to that prosecutor.
If somebody does something really bad, then they get publicly censored. They will publicly reprimand them. And then if you do something really egregious, they would suspend you. And then if you really cross the line, you could actually lose your license to practice law.
The new law would allow not only anonymous complaints that don't need to be sworn into, but different people sitting on that committee.
I mean, they're all political appointees. And anytime you have political appointees, you have people that are grinding an axe for the people that appointed them.
McNamara does not deny there may be people out there abusing their position, but after some research, he says that number is small.
We deal with that, but the reality is it isn't rampant. It isn't something that's out of control.
In Utica, Julia LeBlanc, Eyewitness News.
Coming up tonight on Eyewitness News at 6, in this week's edition of Hidden History, we'll tell you all about the long journey of a war hero and how he ended up here in Oneida County. And the Clinton Arena will be hosting an NHL preseason game. We'll have all the details in Eyewitness Sports, but first, a check on the forecast. Josh.
Yeah, Grace, I'm watching the radar closely this evening. We had some reports of some severe storms down south of the thruway a little earlier, but we're kind of quiet for the time being. I don't think we're out of the woods just yet. I'll have more details about tonight's forecast and the week ahead coming up next.
your Eyewitness weather forecast.
Well, earlier today we had the heat, we had the humidity. This heat advisory map behind me really told the story. We had heat index values up in the low to mid 90s, some spots upper 90s near 100 degrees. It's technically still in effect for parts of the area, including Oneida, southern Herkimer, Madison, Otsego counties until 8 this evening. But because the rain has come through many areas now, the humidity's still around, but the heat is really dying off. Now, we also have a severe thunderstorm watch still technically in effect. It was in effect for Oneida, Madison, Lewis County down towards Shenango County as well. But looks like the Storm Prediction Center has kind of chopped it away because we already have seen some storms come through this part of New York State. So Herkimer, you're under the watch until 10 p.m., but I have a feeling that might expire soon too. Now, there is no severe thunderstorm warning anymore. That was for Otsego County earlier this evening. The storms did come through. I haven't seen any damage reports yet. If I do see any, I will certainly pass them along. Temperatures right now, though, you can see we've cooled off in the 70s here. 76 in Utica, 75 in Cooperstown, 80 in Oneonta, so kind of on the edge of the heat to the lower levels of heat there. So, you know, the humidity's still around. So look at that, Oneonta, it still feels like the mid-80s. Norwich almost feels like it's 90 degrees right now. I don't think we have to talk about the heat index for the rest of the week here. The weather from here on out looks pretty quiet. Now on the radar picture here, I mentioned earlier a good chunk of the moisture, rain, thunder has already cleared our viewing area, but there is still some activity to our north and west that I will be monitoring very closely as we go through the rest of the night here, because sometimes when the severe weather dies off, there's that one or two little rogue shower, thunder shower that can still come through. Beyond midnight, showers, thunder clearly ending here on the futurecast. So tomorrow morning, maybe some fog around. Those of you who got a lot of rain today. And then the sun dries the atmosphere out. Looks good for lunch outside. If you have a chance, do it. And the evening time also looks pretty good. Sun, a few clouds. For a Wednesday, a little bit of moisture down to our south. Might just skirt us with a few extra clouds. Otherwise, a beautiful day for that day. All right, tonight, showers, rain ending, still a bit humid. We're only going to make it down the mid-60s for tonight, so you might still need the air conditioner or the fan. Tomorrow, sun, clouds, a lot less humid than we had earlier today. Mid-upper 70s should do it for the high temperature. And the next 7 days here, look at this. For Wednesday, you know, upper 70s, up near 80 degrees, looks good. Drum roll, please. Thursday, 6:07 a.m. Yes, summer begins. Finally, even though we already felt some summer in this part of our viewing area in New York State. And then we go back up in the 80s Friday, Saturday. The weekend, I kind of outlined the showers, maybe a few in the afternoon Saturday, off and on Sunday, and maybe a few more Monday morning. But I'll tell you what, Grace, that weekend does not look like rain all the time, so please don't be alarmed by it.
I see the rain picture and I get scared.
That's why we have
everybody wants to enjoy
we
their
have to
weekend.
describe it, kind of break it down. It's not just, you know, an all-ending rain, but certainly after a week of dry weather, we need some rain.
Absolutely, the trees need that. Thank you.
And the grass.
Good to know. Still to come on Eyewitness News at 6, a soldier who died nearly a century ago is being honored locally tomorrow. More on his story coming up in this week's edition of Hidden History. That's next. Stay with us.
Brady is not here. He is too upset over the firing of Barry Trotz. Brady needs to grow up and show his face.
You're watching Eyewitness News at 6 on WUTR.
A local investment firm overseeing over $2 billion in assets announced it's merging with the international corporation Baird. Eyewitness News reporter Ben Dennis has more about the decision made by the CEO of the 70-year-old Utica firm.
When Richard Griffith returned home from World War II, he started an investment firm in Utica. And just 3 years after launching his company, he died at the age of 38 from leukemia. But the Navy veteran's firm forged ahead when his wife Margaret became president of the company in the early 1950s.
His employees urged her to come and try her hand at the investment business. Back in 1951, it was like literally unheard of.
That's Margaret and Richard Griffith's son, David. He's been running the company since 1972. And after 70 years of the family function, M. Griffith Investment Services Incorporated will merge with the international corporation, Baird.
I made the decision that it would be better for all concerned if we joined with a larger firm, and then we are not basically reinventing the wheel here in Utica, New York.
The company says it employs over 40 people, and its 12 financial advisors manage more than $2 billion in client assets.
And every employee of the firm has been guaranteed employment for through June 30th of 2019. I don't know what the job situation is after that. We'll just have to see.
And with the upcoming conversion, Griffith says this will be Baird's first private wealth management office in the state, a move Baird chairman Paul Purcell echoed in a press release, saying it expands the company's northeastern footprint. And soon, Griffith says client options where to put their own money will grow.
Whether they have children to educate or grandchildren, or looking close to retirement, or tax planning, because they just had a big, huge change in the tax law this year. Those are things that Baird is right up on.
Griffith says the office location will stay put just off of French Road, even after a new company sign is hoisted on the side of a brick wall. Reporting from the Utica Business Park, I'm Ben Dennis, Eyewitness News.
In this week's edition of Hidden History, Joe Kelly brings us an inside look at a local fallen hero and how our community plans to honor him.
James Miller was born in Tennessee in 1896. At the age of 15, his family moved to Alabama, close to Camp Pettus in Anniston. When he was 17, Miller enlisted in the U.S. Army. He told Army recruiters that he was 21. Miller moved around various Army regiments, eventually settling with the 39th Infantry in Syracuse. In June 1917, he shipped off to France on board the Carpathia, the historic ship that brought home survivors of the Titanic just 5 years earlier. Between the times he arrived in central New York and he went off to war, the boy from Tennessee met a gal from Syracuse and got married. In Europe, Private Miller was a wagoner, running a team of horses and supplies, but in less than a year into his tour of duty in Lorraine, France, Miller died of pneumonia. He was just 22. He was buried in a French military cemetery on the day of his death. 3 years later, Private Miller was disinterred for the purpose of sending him home to the United States. The family agreed that he be buried in Alabama. When his father became ill, he asked James's widow to receive his body. 4 days before Christmas 1921, Private Miller arrived by train in Clinton. He was buried in the Deansboro Cemetery the next day. His grave marked with a bronze medallion. No gravestone was ever placed to mark his burial site until last month, when a tombstone was placed where Private Miller rests. Tomorrow, at the Deansboro Cemetery, there will be a full military ceremony to honor Private Miller, an American soldier who died in the Great War 99 years ago. Produced with the cooperation of the United County History Center, I'm Joe Kelly, and this is Hidden History.
Up next on Eyewitness News at 6, Westmoreland's Jason Robinson continues to defy the odds. Sports Director Lucas Frankel joins us with more. Good evening, Lucas.
Hello, Grace. He may be in a wheelchair, but that didn't stop him from winning 2 state championships. And coming up in Eyewitness Sports, we'll speak with Jason and his father about his groundbreaking achievements. That's next.
Eyewitness Sports right now.
The NHL is coming to Clinton. The historic Clinton Arena will host a preseason game on September 25th between the Buffalo Sabres and Columbus Blue Jackets. Clinton was awarded the game thanks to winning the Kraft Hockeyville USA contest earlier this year, along with $150,000 to be used for renovations. The arena holds about 2,000 people, and it's unclear at this time when and how tickets will become available. Westmoreland freshman Jason Robinson has a condition called spinal bifida. It forces him to get around using a wheelchair, but that hasn't stopped him from breaking barriers.
For most athletes, there's no bigger feat than winning a state title. But for Westmoreland's Jason Robinson, who competes in wheelchair events, there's a greater meaning to coming out on top.
I just want to show them that anything's possible, and that with the support from other people, that you can do anything you want to do, and if you put your mind to it, you're going to be able to accomplish it sometime.
Robinson won New York State championships in both the 1,600 and 3,200 meter wheelchair races, even though he didn't have any direct competition.
The wheelchair sports, they're not very known in this area. They're not very known around the world. And to be able to get more kids interested in the sport, so hopefully by the time I'm a senior, that we'll have more kids here in wheelchair racing, and that we'll have more kids to be able to compete at the state level.
In previous years, athletes like Jason winning a state title could only be a pipe dream. But thanks to the Robinson family, that all changed.
Jason, was the first. It's rewarding, but we really did it because we want more kids to do it. We want more kids like Jason to have disabilities of any form to be able to join their local high school track and field teams.
What the Robinsons did was petition the state to allow wheelchair athletes to compete.
It was shocking, as big as New York State is, that there wasn't any. And I think, not because the state didn't allow them to at the time, I just think nobody pushed that envelope to bring it to the forefront.
And now that he has a pair of state titles under his belt, Jason has even bigger goals in mind.
I really want to make the Paralympics. It's the highest level of competition that I'm able to compete at.
A level that requires a tremendous amount of hard work and dedication to reach.
I think it's up to the athlete if they really want it bad enough, and I think Jason does.
For the time being, Jason is preparing for the Junior World Championships at the end of the month. And that is your day in sports. For more, be sure to visit CNYHomepage.com and click Eyewitness Sports. Eyewitness News is coming right back.
And that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us for Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock. Have a good night.